Hello, I'm Jennifer Goodman with Good Life Realty, and I'm here today with Lex Zwarun of NewCastle Homes. Lex, thanks for coming in and joining us today.
My pleasure. I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. So, Lex, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Long Island, New York, about 20 miles outside the city, in an original Levitt house.
When did you come to Austin?
In the early 90s, I came down here for University of Texas. Wanted to go somewhere warm and far away, and Austin fit the bill. This was before Austin was such a destination, but it only took me a 24-hour visit down here to realize that I was onto something.
So did you go to UT?
Yeah, I went to UT, studied geography and anthropology, did some travel and studying abroad, and then was about to move to the West Coast for grad school when I got into the master's program for urban and regional planning here in Austin, and stuck around for another couple of years, and by then I was hooked for good. So it's been Austin for me ever since.
Wow. So what year was that?
Finished my master's program in 98.
98. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. So you've been here for a lot of change.
Yeah. I think growing up in New York, one of the first things I recognized was East Austin was this gem of an urban community with a ton of potential that had one bad thing. It was cut off by I-35. But that's the case in many cities, and it's been surmounted in many cities, so I kind of knew it was always just a matter of time here too. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, and now look at the east side.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about today. Let's talk about some trends and innovations and business in general.
Okay.
If you will. What are some of the newest innovations you're seeing right now in home construction?
The trend to downsize definitely continues, and the trend to upsize home automation and green features definitely continues. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. There's more technology out there. The technology that exists or has existed is getting more affordable. Mm. And I also think there's more ways to tie all these different technologies in together. Smartphones, Nest thermostats, automated locks, Z-Wave lighting, that kind of thing. We're also noticing, and I'm sure you guys are too, millennials are starting to dictate a lot of future trends, both in home design and how the process itself of buying a home or designing a home or doing design build works.
Okay, and let's talk about some of that. What are some of the newer trends that you're seeing then in terms of how you're building the layouts of these houses?
In terms of layouts, kitchen's always been a heart of the home, but I think there's a renewed focus in that. I think that ties in a bit to the foodie movement or the local farm-to-table movement, which is especially strong here in Austin. Smarter spaces with less definition seem to be trendier, and truly a better way to go, more efficient. By that I would mean rooms that can flex or spaces that can flex for multiple functions, carports that can also be a screened-in patio, guest rooms that are also a home office, open living room, kitchen, open concept floor plans. Also seeing, and there's been a lot written about this lately, millennials seem to be getting away from the traditional living room concept. At first we saw the formal dining room was kind of a dinosaur on its way out, and now, not entirely, but we're starting to see less interest in living rooms.
What's replacing the living room?
A more communal kitchen space and outdoor living, even here in the heat. So I think design comes in extra important. It's great to have outdoor living, but if it's 100 degrees 9 months a year here, it has to be properly designed.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Let's talk about what you're seeing then in those kitchen designs. Is it the island? Is it the appliances? Is it a combination? What do you see right now that's sort of trendy in kitchen design?
Some of it has to do with aesthetics and materials, but more of it I think is ample counter space, lots of light, some of the traditional Leave It to Beaver type features where you can stand at the kitchen sink while you're doing the dishes and look out and see the yard or see the neighborhood. Connectivity to other key living areas, whether it be a living room or a den or especially outdoor living spaces. But connectivity is key. Islands, I think it's a matter of personal preference. It seemed like they were going to be a thing of the past a year or two ago, but they're still strong and preferred by a lot of people, mostly in cases where it can be a communal gathering space or a stand-in bar or kitchen table.
Would you say, Lex, that you have a signature style in your building?
We've actually purposely avoided having a signature style for our actual design work. Our business model calls for working with established and up-and-coming local architectural talent. I would say we're always modern and green, but we purposely keep our look changing, evolving, and keep a portfolio of projects going that have different looks to them. What I think we do have a signature on would be the process, the design build process, and that's what's really helped NewCastle take it to the next level, so to speak.
Yeah, well, and you have. So why don't we talk about that? Because maybe it's not so much about your signature style per se, but it is the way that you operate as a company in Austin. So tell us a little bit about that.
We started out doing really simple remodels and spec buildings. We got into more complicated custom and green building, including the flair for modern and bright colors and bold angles. But what really changed things for us was when we started seeing what the hurdles were for the people who were almost saying yes but not saying yes, identifying those hurdles, and then finding a way to streamline and conquer them. What I'm specifically thinking about is what I'll call a design build one-stop shop. People are busy. They're easily intimidated by things they don't understand, which is human nature. So when we were able to take the basic elements of a design build project and one-stop shop them or single source them and make it so our clients would have a single source, a single point of contact, that's when things really started clicking for us. The elements for your typical design build project are going to be the land, the lot, the architecture, the construction, and the financing. And what NewCastle is really strong at is pulling together all of those elements, making them easily understood, and letting our clients, for the most part, focus on the fun part, which is the design and actually realizing moving into the house.
Which is that huge step at the end. It's just getting to that end.
Yep.
That is often mired in, I think, some bigger waves than people expect.
I think that's true. There's, depending on the clients, they could be single, they could be couples, they could be married. There's usually one person that drives the design, and there's usually one person that drives more the business end of the deal. So I think making all the moving parts easily understood on the front end and building a rapport with clients that they can trust NewCastle to not only manage the different elements, but really excel at each of the different elements. That's where we click. People tend to think if they outsource or do individual elements from a design build project themselves, that they're going to save time or save money or do it better. And sometimes that is the case, but most of the time that's not the case. And even more so, I think a lot of people, especially younger millennials with, blossoming careers, they just don't have the time to manage all those moving parts. So bringing it into a single source or a one-stop shop has really been key for us.
Yeah, I think most people don't have any concept, if they haven't done a project before, just how many moving parts there are and the value that your company brings by putting it all in one space.
I agree. Yeah, there's, design is huge. In a way, we design the whole project, and by that I mean the whole process of acquiring a loan, acquiring a lot, finding contractors, finding architects, and actually building the home and closing on it. So I think the process, what NewCastle has is this process as much as a project.
What would you say is not hot in the world of building these days?
Formal dining rooms, unintelligent window placement that gets you lots of heat along with the light.
It's a big one here.
Yeah, and that is a major factor here in Texas, of course.
And you don't pay once. You pay and you pay and you pay.
And it's not pleasant to live in. I think wasted space, big guest rooms, butler pantries, square footage lost to hallways and passages. Those are all some of the features that we design out, and the younger generation is now smart enough to be aware of. The other interesting trend that's happened in the whole world of design build is what I kind of sometimes jokingly refer to as the dwell movement. When we started this about 15 years ago, people were not ignorant, they weren't dumb, they just knew a lot less about design. Now, thanks to dwell, thanks to house, thanks to oodles of HGTV shows on fix and flips and remodeling and design on a dime, people are far more in tune with design trends, costs of products and processes and services. So the consumer has gotten far more educated. The other interesting thing that's happened is when someone doesn't know something, they'll just say, excuse me, dip into their smartphone, Google it, and be an expert on it 5 minutes later. And I think it's good that clients are smarter, better clientele, smarter customers. That just pushes us. And I think they have an appreciation for the passion that we put into it. And together, we've developed better and better projects as we've gone along.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, again, it's that shining thing in Austin, which is you guys are able to just constantly be able to be in front of it.
Yeah, and we've put a lot of focus onto that. Sometimes it's keeping up with the Joneses, or the Joneses keeping up with us. I try to focus on land acquisitions, general business development, and also product development. And that means getting to the trade shows, reading trade magazines, staying abreast of trends, and not just giving our architects an address and a square footage and saying design a house, but being intimately involved in the design process. It also involves stepping out of traditional role as builder or seller and stepping into the client's shoes, stepping into the client's mother's who's visiting for the first time shoes, thinking about getting your groceries in from the carport when it rains, and thinking of resale value and all that, forcing our clients to not just think about the fun parts of a project, but also think about pragmatism, staying on budget, these kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that gets back to all those working parts. There's the fundamental working parts, which is everything that happens on paper that you have to do and sort of drawing up that plan, but then there's the real life stuff.
Absolutely. Development in the city of Austin is a significant challenge. First, it's a white hot market, so there's tons of competition. The labor market's really tight. That's an increasingly difficult factor for Central Texas to deal with. Austin, San Antonio, really the whole region. Land prices have become a major factor. There are a lot of moving parts, and they change fast. And staying in front of that and having, again, that reputation and rapport with our client base where they trust us to be on top of these things has really been an important part of our business model. Absolutely.
Lex, where do you see the future of new builds these days in Austin?
We focus on the urban core, so I'm definitely able to speak to the urban core much more so than the greater Austin region. I see no shortage of people moving here or jobs. I see lifestyle as a major driver for Austin. As much as we sell a beautiful product and have a wonderful process, a lot of it is the lifestyle. People are attracted to the urban core of Austin for all it has to offer, whether it be the new bars on the east side, new restaurants are opening, art galleries, festivals like ACL and Fun Fest. It's really lifestyle driven. Traffic is a major factor here, which is pushing people who originally left the city or always lived in the suburbs back towards the urban core. What I see is smaller housing, more dense development, certain neighborhoods like Holly on the east side maturing to a point where they're not just for young people, but they can also be for empty nesters who want to move back towards the city to be near all the things they like to do. And I also see big changes coming in terms of local code. City of Austin's always had relatively progressive code, and that's a good thing, even though it makes it hard on the builders. But something's got to give. There's too many people. The prices don't work. There's a whole generation of young professionals that want to be in the urban core that can't even afford to live here. and the code is just simply archaic and outdated. Things like Code Next are really important initiatives, so Newcastle and myself in particular put a lot of time and effort into staying involved and trying to blaze trails on some of these larger initiatives. But I think density, multifamily, small-scale multifamily, whether it be duplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, things that can offer some type of a balance of that urban lifestyle with a few of the single-family fenced-in yard features is what really clicks with most of the demographics we work with in Austin.
Okay, let's talk about, that's great. Tell us about Code Next.
Code Next is a beautiful thing theoretically. Whether it actually comes to be is a whole other discussion. But in theory, the City of Austin code is a lot like the tax code. Thousands of pages, not too efficient. There's some really old arbitrary encumbrances that nobody really knows why they exist. Perfect example of that is the standard lot size in Austin is 5,750 square feet, and nobody really knows why that is. The closest we've found in doing some research is that it actually has some racial overtones. It was a way to price non-white people out of buying single-family houses in some of the original Austin neighborhoods. Code Next is a sweeping attempt to interact with the citizenry, the builders and developers who move and shake in this town, and city authorities to rewrite the code completely. They've collected a ton of great data. There's a lot of good momentum. There's even been some small code changes recently that bode well for the future. The real question is going to come down to if the mayor and the city council have the political stomachs, if you will, to push through some of these changes that don't make everybody happy. Some of the people against some of the Code Next initiatives would be more established neighborhood associations, NIMBYists, not in my backyard.
Yep.
These kind of people who definitely have their points and are entitled to their part of the process and their say in the matter, but in my opinion, aren't realizing some of the realities we're faced with in terms of growth, environmental resource management, and the economics of living near the city of Austin, which a lot of people want to do.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the one thing we've always had here is land, land, land. And Austin being as popular as it is, you could understand that from, whether it's Terrytown or, Barton or wherever, to sever land, if it's going to get smaller and smaller, then I could see how those people who have historically enjoyed the space they have would be concerned with the severance and then the density.
Absolutely. I think those are excellent points. I also think there's, sometimes one bad apple spoils the whole bunch, and there's a lot of myths out there too. Some of the things I'm thinking of is that smaller housing units or duplexes or condo regimes are all for out-of-town investors that just want to make money off of renters.
Right.
Of course, there's some truth to that, but that is genuinely not the case in a lot of urban core neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of this is communication, myth-busting, and getting out there and engaging people to see both sides of the story in terms of what more density, what the benefits of that could be. It's not all about just maximizing returns or getting cheap renters in there so some out-of-town investor profits.
Well, you'd think the city would be happy because they'd get more taxes.
Yeah.
From a core perspective.
No, that's true. And one of the big problems with the city is kind of a left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, or maybe they know but don't agree with each other. Mm-hmm. The mayor has a current initiative out to try to generate 100,000 more affordable housing units, yet other recent code changes are completely counter to that. Other code changes that are being considered right now, like the ending of small lot amnesty, would not help the mayor's initiative, which is an intelligent and needed initiative. Small lot amnesty is a perfect example. Recently, that was run through a formula the city has to generate a housing affordability index, and that came up with a negative index, which means this initiative is not good for housing affordability. So there's a big disconnect between certain departments of the city, certain powers that be, and these kinds of things.
So in your opinion, as a home builder, what is a good thing for the city right now?
Smart planning. There is a such thing as too much density, but Austin is basically on track to be like San Francisco is now, where you can finish your PhD and have a down payment assistance from mom and dad and still not come anywhere close to being able to afford a house to buy anywhere you want to live. So I think smart home building right now is balancing bigger picture initiatives with established neighborhood organizations. Generally, the people that counter most of these initiatives are neighborhood associations who I genuinely believe have their heart in the right place, but are thinking a little bit more or a little bit too much of themselves or the present instead of other people and the future. I think code changes that streamline the building process, remove some of the cost barriers that are in place to producing more affordable housing, utility taps, small lot amnesty. These are the things that have to be thought of on a more regional and comprehensive basis, and we can do better. We really can.
Yeah. Well, listen, Austin is the birthplace of so many things. And when it comes time to innovation and figuring things out, Austin's always a leader, so it will get figured out.
I generally agree. There's been, like I said, there's been a couple of code changes recently that were kind of canaries in the coal mine or litmus tests for if the council and the mayor might have the political will to pass some potentially controversial changes or some changes that ruffle some feathers of the establishment. And so far, so good. So hopefully we'll keep pushing in that direction. The fact that the city's pumping so much money and time into the Code Next initiative is promising as well.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing what's happening with that.
Absolutely.
What's the one thing that you would say that homeowners can do right now in the city to make their home more eco-friendly?
Insulation and windows. It's hot in Texas. You're spending a vast majority of your annual utility bills on air conditioning. Upgraded insulation, better windows, and the things that go with this, smarter HVAC systems, air conditioning, smarter roofing. One of the problems with the green building movement is some of the smartest things to do are not that sexy. Sexy green features are solar panels and geothermal heating, but those are great things, and they are getting a better return on their investment as they get more affordable and utility prices go up. But it's the low-hanging fruit or the unsexy stuff that makes the most sense. So we're pretty adamant about driving this point home to our clients. It's hard to beat upgrading your windows and having good insulation. Not as fun to talk about as a cocktail party as a solar roof, but that's the smart thing to do.
Well, it is. You know what's sexy is a fat bank account that is
That's
not,
true.
paying money out every single month
Yeah.
for nothing.
Absolutely.
We have nothing to show for it.
Another, and this relates back to the design element, just proper design. The local architects we work with using building information modeling systems, passive solar design, just moving a window over a foot, downsizing it a couple inches. All this has such a huge impact on design, and this is some of the stuff that's lost from cookie cutter builders or people who just draft up home plans instead of using local architecture.
Well, thanks, Lex, for coming in and sharing sort of your thoughts and your purview, if you will, on what's going on with trends and innovation in business here in Austin. We really appreciate you coming in today.
My pleasure. A great opportunity, and you made it easy for me by not really lobbing softballs, but just having well thought out questions that are easy to blend together into a bigger picture.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thanks.
I'm Jennifer Goodman with Good Life Realty. I've been here today with Lex Zwarun of NewCastle Homes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.